Good evening, the name's Bond, Captain Goodspeed Bond, and welcome to another video. Over the years there's been a variety of different MI6 and government characters appearing in the James Bond films, but only one of them has appeared in all but one film. James Bond's boss, sometimes friend, and the one person for which all of his loyalties lie, M. As of 2025, there have been 4 actors who have portrayed the head of MI6 in the official James Bond films. Bernard Lee.
If you carry a 00 number, it means you're licensed to kill, not get killed. And another thing, since I've been head of MI7, there's been a 40% drop in 00 operative casualties, and I want it to stay that way. You'll carry the water.
Robert Brown.
You know what this is?
Well, it looks like a Fabergé egg, sir. One of the jewel eggs made by Carl Fabergé as an Easter gift for the Russian royal family. They're priceless and very rare. This one contains a model of the Imperial State Coach.
Top marks, 007.
Thank you.
Dame Judi Dench.
Remember me?
Remind her. Then pump her for information.
You'll just have to decide how much pumping is needed, James.
And Ralph Fiennes.
It could have been worse.
Worse. You blew up half a bloody block.
Well, better half a block than a whole stadium full of people.
You had no authority. None. As you know, we're in the middle of the biggest shake-up in the history of British intelligence. The ink's barely dry on this merger with MI5, and already they're itching for a chance to scrap the 00 program forever, and you've just given them one.
Today we rank these portrayals from worst to best. Before we get into it, I'm considering Judi Dench's portrayal as one iteration of the character, despite the fact that she's believed to have played 2 different versions of M in the Brosnan and Craig tenures. Let's begin with 004. There's 2 words I'll use to describe this one. Missed opportunity. Yes, I really believe it is a huge missed opportunity that Ralph Fiennes will most likely never play the character again. What I really like about Fiennes' portrayal of the character is that he has field experience, and we see that quite a bit in Skyfall and Spectre. He is introduced as a character, Gareth Mallory, that is pressuring the current M, played by Judi Dench, to retire while a public enquiry is going on regarding M's handling of a stolen hard drive. Mallory served in Northern Ireland with the SAS and is an integral part of protecting M when the enquiry is stormed by Silva's men. This is a truly badass introduction for Fiennes. By the end of the film, he is assuming the position of M himself, and what I absolutely love is that we are teased with the return of the classic M scene in his office as the end credits roll. In Spectre, he of course is displaced and demoted by C, and assists Bond in the field as they look to prevent the Nine Eyes initiative going through. He's also responsible for perhaps the best one-liner delivered by M in the whole franchise.
But then isn't that what M stands for? Moron.
And now we know what C stands for.
It's a pity they didn't commit to it though.
Careless.
In No Time to Die, I think M can be quite conceivably be seen as a villain for the first half of the film. He authorises the development of Project Heracles, a DNA-targeting nanobot bioweapon, which ultimately sees the death of James Bond. Ironically, Mallory eulogises Bond at the end of the film, despite this. If they do decide to stick with Ralph Fiennes as M going forward, you certainly won't be seeing me complain about it, as I think we've got a lot of potential if he's played more in the vein of his Skyfall Spectre character than his No Time to Die counterpart. It's time for 003. Perhaps surprising that I've put Robert Brown ahead of Ralph Fiennes. I'm not sure you'd see this in many other lists, but I really love Robert Brown's portrayal. After Bernard Lee played the character in the first 11 films of the franchise, it takes a brave man to take over and put his own spin on the character. I absolutely think that Brown did that and more. Brown first appeared in 1977's The Spy Who Loved Me, before taking on the role of M for 4 films, starting with Octopussy in 1983. Brown plays the role much more seriously and perhaps without the warmth that Bernard Lee had in his relationship with Bond. He does have the odd raised eyebrow and can sometimes be seen as being too nice to Bond, but I think we can all agree that some of the highlights of Brown's tenure come in the Timothy Dalton tenure. His reaction to the receipt of Koskov's Harrod's hamper is hilarious, and in particular his shining moment comes as Bond resigns from MI6 in Licence to Kill.
They're not going to do anything. I owe it to Leiter. He's put his life on the line for me many times.
Oh, spare me this sentimental rubbish. He knew the risks.
And his wife?
This private vendetta of yours could easily compromise Her Majesty's government. You have an assignment, and I expect you to carry it out objectively and professionally.
Then you have my resignation, sir.
We're not a country club, 007. Effective immediately. Your license to kill is revoked.
He does continue to protect Bond in that moment and uses the excuse of "there's too many people" when he calls off his guards who are shooting at Bond. It would have been lovely to see where Brown's portrayal would have gone had Timothy Dalton had a third and fourth Bond film in the early 90s, but, as with a lot of things from around that time, we'll never know. There's a fantastic moment in tribute to Brown in No Time to Die as his portrait is shown opposite a portrait of Judi Dench's M, finally confirming that his character was indeed different to that of Bernard Lee's. Number 002. This is probably the most famous portrayal of this character, but I think there's just one more that's a little bit better. When you count all of her video game appearances and unofficial portrayals of the character in money supermarket adverts, Judi Dench has probably played that character of M more than anyone else so far, and does an incredible job every single time. After the long hiatus of the James Bond franchise following 1989's License to Kill, Dench took on the role of M after the soft reboot of the franchise with the release of GoldenEye and the beginning of the Brosnan era. To pull off a female M in what was probably thought to be a man's world, they needed an actor with gravitas, and that is certainly the case with Dame Judi. Her first version of M is apparently based on Stella Rimington, who was the real-life head of MI5 between 1992 and 1996. You can certainly see the resemblance, although I'm not sure she ever said this to one of her agents.
Because I think you're a sexist, misogynist dinosaur, a relic of the Cold War, whose boyish charms, though wasted on me, obviously appeal to that young woman I sent out to evaluate you.
Point taken.
For GoldenEye, Dench's M is cold, blunt, and initially disliked Bond. Her team also appear to have their doubts about her.
Seems your hunch was right, 007. It's too bad the evil Queen of Numbers wouldn't let you play it.
You were saying?
No, I was just.
Good. Because if I want sarcasm, Mr. Tanner, I'll talk to my children, thank you very much.
But she eventually grows to respect Bond's methods, and by the world is not enough, she is heading out into the field herself and becoming the damsel in distress that Bond needs to rescue. She does betray Bond in Die Another Day and leaves him to the North Koreans, which again shows her cold side, and her loyalties are most definitely to her duties as opposed to her relationships. Following Pierce Brosnan's departure from the role as Bond, Dench continued playing M for the 2006 film Casino Royale, which rebooted the series with Daniel Craig playing Bond at the beginning of his career. In this new continuity, M has worked for MI6 for some time, at one point muttering, "Christ, I miss the Cold War." By Skyfall, Dench had now appeared in 7 James Bond movies, and it's clear the government are trying to force her out, as we said before. She's also targeted by a former MI6 agent in Ralph Silver, and Bond once again comes to the rescue, taking her to his childhood home in Scotland, using her as bait to draw out Silver and his forces. We see Dench's M in a different light here, as she assists Bond with making booby traps in preparation of the imminent attack. Ultimately, she is shot and wounded before dying from her wounds in Bond's arms, an unprecedented and tear-jerking move, making her the only M to die in the Eon James Bond films. She does make further cameos in Spectre via videotape, and in No Time to Die is a portrait on the wall in M's office. In another difference to her predecessors, there have also been brief references to Dench's M having family. In GoldenEye, she responds to Tanner, telling him when she wants to hear sarcasm, she will listen to her children. In Skyfall, she is revealed to be a widow. Judi Dench embellished the role of M and made it fit for the modern era. However, there is just one more person who I think played the role just a little bit better. And finally, number 001. The original and best. Well, in my opinion anyway. The best thing about Bernard Lee's portrayal for me is that he's very much in line with the original vision for the character written on the pages of Ian Fleming's original novels. Although there have been moments of wit, humour and warmth from Lee's portrayal of Miles, ultimately he's a very efficient, to the point, no-nonsense authority character throughout his 11-film run. I always loved the final interaction between Bond and Bernard Lee's M down by the canals in Venice.
Have Q do an analysis of this. I took it from the laboratory. Tell him to exercise extreme caution. It is lethal.
So there was a laboratory. You better take 2 weeks leave of absence, 007. You any thoughts about where you might go?
I always had a hankering to go to Rio, sir.
I think I can recall your mentioning it. 007. No slip-ups. Or we're both in trouble.
It would have been lovely for Bernard Lee to have a proper send-off, akin to Desmond Llewellyn in The World Is Not Enough, but unfortunately, Lee died of cancer in January 1981, 4 months into the filming of For Your Eyes Only, and before any of his scenes could be filmed. Out of respect for the actor, no one replaced Lee in the role during that film, and all of his lines went to either the Chief of Staff or Minister of Defence, as M was on leave. Like we've mentioned with Brown and Dench, later films referred to Lee's tenure as the head of service, with a painting of him as M in MI6's Scottish headquarters during The World Is Not Enough. There are a few moments that stick out to me, as well as the one in Venice. I love M being on the submarine in You Only Live Twice out in Japan. It really heightens the idea of how serious the situation is. I also love that he comes to Bond's house in Live and Let Die and becomes clearly infuriated that Bond steals his coffee spoon with the magnetic watch. I also love how miffed off he is with Q in The Man with a Golden Gun. He's clearly so irritated by everything in that film, and it just adds a whole new dimension and normality to his character, that he's not just being played completely one-dimensionally.
So if I heard correctly, Scaramanga got away.
Yes, sir.
The car, the sprouted wings.
Oh, that's perfectly feasible, sir. As a matter of fact, we're working on one now.
Oh, Q, shut up. Miss Goodnight was in the boot.
Yes, sir. We found the car plane abandoned about 200 miles west of Bangkok.
And the Solex?
In Goodnight's handbag, sir.
Where's Goodnight now?
We don't know, sir. Well, communications aren't picking up the signal from the Homer she has supplied by Q.
Rubbish! They're simply not stepping up the reception sufficiently to enable...
Oh, shut up, Q. Of all the fouled-up, half-witted operation.
In my opinion, nobody does it better than Bernard Lee in the role of M. But that's just my opinion. Let me know what your ranking would be down in the comments section below. Do you have any favourite moments from the 4 actors? Do you think they should stick with Ralph Fiennes going forward? Or do you think there's another obvious choice that the producers could be going for? Let me know down below. If you've enjoyed that, give it a massive thumbs up down below. Subscribe to the channel for plenty more Bond content. And for now, goodbye, Mr. Bond.